Chosen one. Have you ever walked into a room and felt drained instantly, like something was off, but you couldn't quite explain it? The atmosphere felt heavy, your energy began to fade, and suddenly, without anyone saying a word, you just knew. That wasn't anxiety. That wasn't imagination. That was your spirit warning you, and listen carefully, because this is spiritual warfare disguised as everyday life. You weren't created to blend in. You weren't meant to be comfortable in every environment. You're not like them. You carry something sacred, something heavenly, and when you step into certain places or around certain people, that divine light inside you starts to clash with darkness that's hidden in plain sight. It's not personal, it's spiritual. In this video, I'm going to expose the truth, the deeper, unseen reason why you, as a chosen one, can't and shouldn't be around too many people. This message will shake something loose in your spirit. You'll finally understand why you've always felt different, why solitude keeps calling you, and why God won't allow just anyone to walk beside you. You're not antisocial, you're not broken, you're set apart. But here's the catch. If you don't understand this truth, you'll keep inviting spiritual sabotage into your life. You'll keep mislabeling divine isolation as rejection, and worst of all, you'll keep shrinking to fit into places God is trying to pull you out of. So don't scroll, don't click away, because what you're about to hear is a spiritual revelation most people will never understand, and that's exactly why you must. Before we dive in, make sure you hit the like button and drop a 99 in the comments if you've ever felt the weight of being set apart. The number 99 represents God's perfect completion, the one sheep that is never left behind, no matter how far it's wandered. By commenting 99, you're declaring your readiness to stand strong in your calling and that you're not alone in this journey. This helps spread the message to other chosen ones who need to hear it. Let's rise together, chosen one. There's something about you that people sense before they understand. Something that walks into a room before you speak. It's not your appearance. It's not your personality. It's your presence. And more specifically, the divine energy you carry. This energy is not ordinary. It's not manufactured. It's not learned. It's given directly from heaven. You carry the light of the Most High, a spiritual flame that never flickers, even when life tries to blow it out. And that light, whether you realize it or not, is constantly clashing with the darkness in this world. You might think you're just being quiet. You might think you're just observing. But in the spirit realm, your presence is doing something far deeper. You're exposing, you're disrupting, you're awakening. Because when the light shows up, shadows can't hide anymore. And make no mistake, when people encounter you, their shadows start to tremble. This is why some people suddenly shift when you enter the room. Why they fidget, look away, change their tone, or even start to act cold, distant, or strangely hostile. They don't know why, but their spirit does. You don't need to say a word. The light inside of you does all the speaking. See, Matthew 5:14 says it clearly. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. You weren't meant to blend in with the crowd. You weren't designed to dim your radiance just to make others comfortable. But here's the catch. Not everyone wants to be around the light. Some people prefer the darkness. Some people thrive in secrecy. Some people have built entire identities around what the light threatens to reveal. And when you show up, carrying that divine radiance, their illusions begin to crack, their masks begin to slip, and their hidden motives start to surface. They can't explain why you make them uncomfortable, but deep down, they feel exposed. That's why certain people distance themselves without cause. Why old friends ghost you after your spiritual awakening. Why rooms that once welcomed you now feel cold, even hostile. It's not rejection. It's revelation. Your energy isn't just light, it's a mirror, a spiritual mirror that reflects what others don't want to see in themselves. And listen carefully. This is why being around too many people can be dangerous for you, because when you constantly give off this light without boundaries, you become a target, a threat, a disruption to systems built on lies, comfort, and compromise. And the more you try to normalize yourself to fit in, the more drained you become, the more silent your spirit gets, the more distant you feel from God. You were never supposed to be accessible to everyone. You were never meant to be everywhere. You are a sacred vessel, not a social accessory. Chosen one. Your energy is not just valuable, it's sacred. And what is sacred must be protected. Because the enemy doesn't just attack with temptation, he attacks through distractions, through draining connections, through too much access. He doesn't always roar like a lion. Sometimes he whispers through harmless company. Sometimes he hides in fake support. Sometimes he uses the crowd to dim the light, slowly, subtly. So let me ask you, who's been standing too close to your flame, with wet hands and hidden intentions? Because when you realize the true weight of your presence, you'll stop giving away pieces of yourself so freely. You'll stop apologizing for the discomfort your light brings, and you'll start doing what you were always meant to do. Shine unapologetically. But here's the twist. The real danger isn't just in others reacting to your light. It's in you, forgetting why that light was given to you in the first place. And what happens when you try to dim it, just to feel less alone? That is what we need to talk about next. Don't go anywhere. What comes now is even more revealing. Chosen one. There's something inside you that's hard to explain. Something that picks up on what's unspoken. Something that sees beyond the smile, hears beyond the words, and feels what others pretend not to feel. You walk into a room, and instantly, you know when something's off. Even if it looks normal, you know when someone's smiling, but something dark is lingering behind their eyes. You know when the energy shifts, and everyone else is still laughing. That's not paranoia, that's not anxiety, that's discernment. It's the kind of spiritual sensitivity that can't be taught. It's not intuition, it's not emotional intelligence. It's a gift, straight from the throne of God. But here's the secret no one talks about. That gift comes with a cost, because when you feel everything, you also carry what others won't. You notice what others ignore, and you battle in silence while the world keeps pretending. That's why crowded places exhaust you. Not because you're antisocial, but because your spirit is constantly scanning. It's discerning spirits, interpreting energies, feeling unseen warfare happening all around you. And it's why, after being around certain people, you go home and feel spiritually drained, sometimes for days. It's not physical, it's not emotional, it's spiritual overload. God didn't give you this sensitivity to make your life harder. He gave it to you so you could be a spiritual watchman, so you could see what's really happening beneath the surface. But here's the trap. If you don't protect this gift, if you treat it like something casual, if you ignore the warnings your spirit is giving you, you'll start to confuse discernment with judgment. You'll begin calling your spiritual radar negativity just to keep the peace. And worst of all, you'll stay in atmospheres God is trying to pull you out of. 1 John 4:1 says, "Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God." You're not meant to accept every vibe. You're not supposed to vibe with everyone, because not every spirit is from Him. Let that sink in. Every conversation carries a spirit. Every invitation is a spiritual transaction. Every relationship, every gathering, every harmless connection is a doorway. And some of those doorways lead straight into warfare. Chosen one, your spiritual sensitivity is your alarm system. It goes off when danger is near, even if it's dressed in charm. It alerts you to subtle manipulation, to hidden jealousy, to counterfeit peace. and if you ignore it long enough, it starts to numb out. That's why many chosen ones fall into cycles of burnout, confusion, or sudden spiritual attack, not because God wasn't speaking, but because they kept silencing the signal to make others comfortable. You were never meant to entertain everything that looks good. You were meant to test it, because your sensitivity doesn't just protect you, it protects your calling. The enemy wants you overstimulated, distracted, surrounded, because the noisier your life gets, the harder it is to hear him. But here's what the enemy didn't count on: that one day you'd finally recognize this sensitivity for what it really is, a divine weapon. One that can slice through deception with a whisper. One that discerns demonic activity hiding in everyday moments. One that separates the real from the counterfeit before it can even speak. So don't apologize for your silence. Don't downplay your discernment. And don't feel guilty for needing to step back. You're not too sensitive. You're spiritually equipped. But what happens when this sensitivity becomes so sharp that you start to feel what even heaven is getting ready to release? Stay with me, because in the next moment, we're going even deeper. There's a divine strategy unfolding in your isolation, and it's not what you think. Chosen one, let this truth shake you. Some people were never meant to go with you. Not because they're evil, not because you don't love them, but because the weight of your calling is too heavy to carry with unnecessary baggage. You were born with divine coordinates embedded in your spirit. A spiritual assignment, a prophetic destination, a heavenly mission that requires a level of focus, discipline, and purity most people simply don't understand. And the more you grow, the more God begins to filter your circle. You'll start to feel it. People fading, doors closing, invitations disappearing. At first, it feels like loss. But soon, you'll realize it was protection. Divine redirection wrapped in what felt like rejection. Because hear me, some connections don't just distract you, they detour you. They delay your breakthrough. They dilute your discernment. And God is too invested in your future to let you drag everyone from your past into your next. Let's go deeper. In Genesis 37, Joseph was a dreamer. God gave him visions of greatness, glimpses of destiny. But notice this. The moment he shared his dreams with the wrong people, even his own brothers, they didn't celebrate him. They plotted against him. They threw him in a pit. They sold him into slavery. Why? Because what God showed Joseph offended the ones who couldn't see it for themselves. Let that sink in. There are people around you right now who smile in your presence, but are intimidated by what God is doing in your life. They don't hate you. They hate what your presence reminds them of. Unrealized purpose, unanswered callings, forgotten promises. And if you're not careful, you'll keep shrinking your vision to fit their insecurity. But hear this, chosen one, you are not responsible for their comfort. You are responsible for your obedience. Joseph's journey was lonely. Betrayal, isolation, false accusation. Years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. But what looked like setbacks were actually setups. Every pit, every prison, every season of silence was preparing him for palace-level purpose. God had to strip away the crowd to sharpen the calling. He had to remove familiar voices so Joseph could hear only his. And the same is happening to you. God is selective with who he allows around his chosen ones, because not every voice deserves access to your process. Some people can't handle the oil on your life. Some will try to steal it. Others will try to sabotage it. That's why isolation isn't a punishment. It's a refinement. It's in that silence that God rewires your mind. In the quiet, he reveals the blueprint. Away from the noise, he downloads the next steps. Because where he's taking you, you can't afford to carry dead weight. Think about it. Every time you try to hold on to people who've expired in your story, you delay the arrival of those assigned to your future. You're not being cold. You're being called. And when you finally embrace that, not everyone is meant to go where you're going, you'll stop grieving the ones who left and start preparing for the ones who are coming. So let me ask you this. What are you still carrying that God has already released? Whose voice are you still entertaining that heaven has already silenced? Because here's the truth. If the enemy can't destroy your calling, he'll try to distract you with companionship. He'll send people to delay, not destroy, because delay is more subtle, more comfortable, more disguised as love, friendship, or loyalty. But if you don't discern it, you'll trade your palace for company that was never meant to make it past the pit. Chosen one, you're not lonely. You're being positioned. God is clearing the runway for takeoff, but before you ascend, you must ask, who's still on board? That was never meant to be on this flight. Stay with me. Because in the next part, we're going to uncover why your isolation isn't just about protection. It's about activation, and once you see it, your whole wilderness season will start to make sense. Chosen one. There's a chilling reality you need to face. And once you do, it will forever change the way you walk in this world. Not every enemy comes dressed as opposition. Some come dressed as friends, as supporters, as loyal companions, sent to applaud you, while secretly plotting your fall. And the more anointed you are, the more subtle the attack becomes. Because the enemy knows, if he shows his face, you'll fight. So instead, he hides behind familiar voices, behind people who sit at your table, speak your language, laugh at your jokes. But in the spirit, they are draining your power like parasites in disguise. Psalm 41:9 pierces the heart. Even my close friend, someone I trusted, one who shared my bread, has turned against me. This wasn't a stranger. This was someone trusted, someone close, enough to touch the oil on your life and twist it into a weapon. Chosen one, hear me. Spiritual warfare isn't always loud. It doesn't always come with demonic faces, open betrayal, or obvious chaos. Sometimes it moves in whispers, in jealousy dressed as concern, in manipulation wrapped in flattery, in passive aggression passed off as jokes. These are the hidden enemies. The ones who applaud your success, but only until it surpasses theirs. The ones who encourage your calling, but secretly hope you fail. The ones who act like they're in your corner, but in the realm of the spirit. They're stealing your energy, distorting your vision, and planting seeds of confusion, and God, in His mercy, begins to remove them. He doesn't always expose them publicly, because He's not just protecting you, He's protecting them from your wrath. Instead, He distances them subtly. He dries up conversations. He causes delays, friction, silence, things that seem random but are actually divine separation, because your calling is too precious to be sabotaged by shadows. And your spirit is too valuable to be drained by leeches wearing loyalty as a mask. This is why you're feeling more alone lately. This is why your circle is shrinking. It's not because you're difficult. It's because heaven is trimming the access list to your destiny. Not everyone who claps for you should be in the room when your crown is placed. Think about Judas. He walked with Jesus, ate with him, watched miracles unfold. He was close, but never loyal. He looked like a disciple, but his heart belonged to the highest bidder. And still, Jesus let him sit at the table. Why? Because even betrayal serves a purpose. Judas unlocked the cross. The very thing that looked like sabotage was actually a divine setup for resurrection. Chosen one, don't fear the fake ones. Don't panic over who's turning against you. God sees it before you do. And by the time their heart shifts, He's already made arrangements to protect your path. But you must be wise. You must listen when your spirit gets agitated for no reason around certain people. You must trust the dis-ease in your soul. That subtle tightening when someone speaks a little too sweetly, praises you a little too often, asks a little too many questions about what God is doing in your life. Because spiritual sabotage often enters through familiar doors. And if you keep ignoring the signs, you'll end up inviting warfare into your own home. Let's go even deeper. Every time you share your divine instructions with the wrong person, you water down the oil. You give the enemy intel. You give jealousy a roadmap. You give doubt a voice, all while thinking you're just opening up. Not everyone deserves access to your vulnerable seasons. Some people only love you when you're struggling, because your shine threatens their shadows. The moment you rise, their true heart is revealed. So God, in His mercy, allows pressure to expose them. He permits shifts in the atmosphere. He lets you overhear that comment, feel that coldness, sense that fake cheer. It's not paranoia, it's prophetic protection. Chosen one, you weren't called to be suspicious, but you were called to be spiritually sharp. Because the same spirit that gives you discernment also gives you permission to walk away. Stop explaining yourself to people who are secretly hoping you fall. Stop shrinking your gifts to keep others comfortable. Stop calling spiritual leeches. Your support system. Let the pruning happen. Let the false connections fall. Let heaven isolate you if it must, because what's coming next in your life cannot afford any hidden cracks. But there's something even deeper we need to confront. Because sometimes the sabotage doesn't come from the outside. Sometimes the most dangerous sabotage is internal, born from wounds, doubts, and inner battles you thought were already healed. Stick with me, chosen one, because next, we're going straight into the battlefield of the soul, where your greatest victory is waiting to be claimed. Chosen one, there's a sacred sound that's been chasing your spirit, a divine frequency that the world cannot hear. It's God's whisper, and it's only found in the quiet. But let's be real. We live in a world addicted to noise. Everyone is talking, everyone is posting, everyone has an opinion, a prophecy, a message, a warning. And in the middle of that chaos, it becomes almost impossible to hear the still, small voice of the one who created you. That's why, chosen. Your solitude is not a punishment. It's an invitation. God pulls you away from the crowd, not because He's isolating you, but because He's preparing to speak directly to your soul. Too many voices can drown out heaven. Too many opinions can cloud your discernment. Too much input from the outside can cause you to forget the voice of the shepherd who's been guiding you since before you were born. This is why God keeps pulling you back. This is why He lets certain plans fall through. Why you suddenly feel disconnected from people, platforms, places that once felt like home. Because when God is about to download something critical into your spirit, He silences the noise. Look at Jesus, the Son of God, the Anointed One, the miracle worker. Even He withdrew from the crowds. Luke 5:16 says, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." He didn't wait until the chaos ended. He stepped away from it. Because even Christ knew, some things can only be received in stillness. And chosen one, if Jesus, fully divine, fully human, needed solitude to hear the Father, how much more do you? The quiet is not empty. It's pregnant with revelation. It's in the quiet that God reveals secrets not meant for the masses, blueprints for your next move, warnings about future attacks, clarity on who's truly sent by Him and who's only pretending. But here's the challenge. The quiet can feel uncomfortable. Why? Because it exposes things. It confronts the thoughts you've buried, the fears you've ignored, the identity you've been running from. But don't be afraid of that confrontation, because that's where healing begins. The quiet is where God reminds you who you really are, not who the world says you are, not who trauma tried to convince you to become, not who the enemy has been whispering you'll never be. In the stillness, God speaks your identity back into place. You're not broken, you're not forgotten, you're not behind, you're becoming. Chosen one, God doesn't shout over the crowd. He doesn't compete with chaos. He whispers, and only those who step away from the noise will hear him clearly. Think of Moses on the mountain, Elijah in the cave, Paul in prison, Jesus in the wilderness. Every one of them received revelation in isolation, because solitude is not just separation, it's preparation. It's a sacred space where heaven aligns your spirit, renews your mind, and downloads what your next season requires. Don't fear the silence. Don't rush out of it. Don't fill it with distractions or meaningless conversations. Because right now, God is speaking in ways that only your spirit can interpret. And the words he's whispering aren't for public consumption. They're for your soul's transformation. That's why people have been dropping off. That's why you've felt the urge to log off, to disappear, to unplug. It's not depression, it's divine detachment. He's unplugging you from the world so he can plug you into eternity. But lean in, because this is where many miss it. In the quiet, the enemy will try to plant lies. He'll tell you God is far. He'll say you've been forgotten. He'll whisper that this season is wasted. But don't fall for it. Because right now, in this very moment, God is sharpening your discernment. He's testing your ears, training your obedience, and preparing your spirit to carry weight others can't handle. So be still, not just physically, but spiritually. Shut out the noise, refuse the distractions, because what God wants to give you next requires a quiet soul. And here's the mystery. Once you learn to hear him in the silence, you'll never crave the noise again. But stay with me, because in this final revelation, we're about to bring everything together. The energy you carry, the people you've lost, the pain of isolation. It all has a purpose. And when you see it clearly, you'll understand why you were never meant to blend in. You were born to stand apart. Chosen one. I want you to hear this now, with everything in your spirit. Your isolation is not punishment, it's preparation. God is setting you apart for a purpose so grand, so divine, that the world cannot even begin to comprehend it. He is pouring into you, shaping you, guiding you, and elevating you in ways that no one can interrupt. Do not mourn the loss of people. Do not fear the quiet. Do not question the separation. Because God is using it all. Every moment of solitude, every feeling of loneliness, every door that closed, to forge you into someone the world will never forget. You are in a season of preparation. You are in the furnace of transformation. And though it may feel painful at times, know this: you are being forged for greatness. The next chapter of your life is being written by the hand of God himself. He is positioning you for